The Las Vegas Raiders are heading to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs in a game with an over-under of 51.5. Kansas City is favored by 7.5 points. We'll talk about that more today on Showdown Coverage, brought to you by Sharp Football Analysis. I'm your host, Adam Wilde, and we will jump right into the slate. The first player that we're going to talk about is Patrick Mahomes at 12K. So he is pretty expensive for a non-rushing quarterback, to be certain. But I mean, he is Patrick Mahomes. So typically you'll see like Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts get to 12.8. But you won't really see a non-rushing quarterback get to 12 unless, of course, he is the best in the NFL. So that puts Patrick Mahomes at 12,000. And that's something that we're going to talk about a lot today because with that price, people are going to be naturally gravitating towards Derek Carr for $1,800 less. And then that's going to put them on a lot of the Raiders players. So it's nice to have a week where you can expect reasonable roster percentages for Kansas City. Next is going to be Davante Adams, and we're going to actually bring Davante Adams and Travis Kelce into the conversation because something I want to toy with this week is trying to play Adams and Kelce. That's going to eat up a ton of your salary, but it's going to be unique in that people do not want to have to pay down on three players, or at least two, which we'll get to a little bit later. So I'm going to actually be trying to put both of the target hogs in one lineup from both teams, and a reason you want to do that is because a lot of people that play Travis Kelce are going to naturally gravitate towards Patrick Mahomes, which is going to put them on more of the Kansas City Chiefs side of the ball. If they play Davante Adams, they're going to want to play Derek Carr, and then that's going to put them on more of the Vegas side of the ball. So what I'm going to try to do is play Adams in some Chiefs-heavy lineups as the lone run back, or Kelce in some Raiders-heavy lineups as the lone run back, and just hope that the offenses go entirely through those two players. So that brings us down to Derek Carr, who, like I said, he's just so much cheaper, $1,800 less than Patrick Mahomes. Similar play style, obviously not nearly as good. And we can expect within about 2 to 3 points of Patrick Mahomes if both of them hit their median projection. So a lot of people are going to say, okay, well, I'm just going to take the discount on Derek Carr. I'm also going to get a little bit of a discount on some of Derek Carr's players. So I don't mind that. Well, ownership is going to kind of dictate where we go with this, because if the Chiefs side of the ball is less owned because they're more expensive, then we're just going to have to make that work. It's the Kansas City Chiefs. So with that being said, Derek Carr totally fine, good value. His options are fine as well, but I do think that it's better to lean to the Kansas City side of the ball in this game. Josh Jacobs has been incredibly impressive given the start to his career with Josh McDaniel. He has, put the whole Hall of Fame game in the rearview mirror, and he was getting a moderate amount of touches through the first 3 weeks, but then last week just exploded with I think about 25 opportunities, 2 touchdowns, over 100 yards, and played 80% of the snaps. So you don't really know if it's going to stay like that. I actually do think that it's going to regress a little bit because Brandon Bolden only played 7% of the snaps last week, and I just don't think that that's going to remain consistent, as we'll talk about a little bit later. So Josh Jacobs, an excellent play, 8,800. I just don't know that you necessarily need to go with Jacobs unless you go Josh Jacobs, Kansas City heavy build. That may end up just a little chalky. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is 1,400 less than Josh Jacobs, and he had similar issues prior to last week in that he was just given, he was a head scratcher because we don't know how how he's going to continue producing at the level he was producing at without getting more than 9 carries in a game. And then last week he gets 20. Well, a lot of people might not be on Clyde Edwards-Helaire this week, perhaps because they think that he's going to go back down to that 10 carries, three games under 10 carries, and then bam, he gets 20 last week. But realistically, he should be getting more than like 20 touches a game, given the volume that he had prior to. He was only playing 50% of the snaps with Jerick McKinnon, but he was getting such a large target share of the offense. So it's not as though he wasn't getting the touches. He just wasn't really getting the snaps. Darren Waller, who's only averaging about 5 targets a game, 4 catches a game, and just hasn't really gotten there. So there's not a whole lot of reason to play him at 7,200 unless his ownership projection's very low. But I actually think that Juju Smith-Schuster is going to have a similar roster projection and gonna average more. Been averaging more targets. Smith-Schuster is pretty much the same play as Darren Waller. He's gonna be low A dot. He's gonna get about 8 targets. He's at 8 targets in 3 of 4 games. And so, if you want to go with one of those high volume players, I'd rather go with Juju Smith Schuster and then maybe play one of the less expensive options for the Raiders, which those less expensive options are going to be Hunter Renfrow and Mac Hollins. Mac Hollins had that 123-yard game, I believe, 2 weeks ago. He's had like 11 targets over the last 2 weeks and played great in Hunter Renfrow's stead. Hunter Renfrow missed the last 2 games, but prior to Renfrow missing, he had 6 targets and 10 targets in the first 2 games. So it wasn't Hunter Renfrow that was taking a back seat with Devontae Adams sucking up so much of the volume. But with Mac Hollins playing so well, we might see Hunter Renfrow not quite get to that 60 to 70% snap share, except if Foster Moreau is out, we should see more 4 wide receiver sets. Foster Moreau was out last week, and we didn't see a lot of 4 wide receiver sets, but that's because Keelan Cole was the only option. Now with Mac Hollins playing well, Hunter Renfrow back, if Foster Moreau misses again, you might see more 4 wide receiver sets, which would put Renfrow and Mac Hollins on the field at the same time. Bodes well for both of their projections. Well, I guess it bodes well for Mac Hollins. Hunter Renfrow, I guess, takes a little bit of a dip because Mac Hollins might steal some of the opportunity. But either way, Mac Hollins played himself into a role. So they're both viable. But my preferred option in this range is Valdes-Scantling, who at 5,200 falls right in the middle of Renfrow and Hollins. Again, puts you on the Kansas City side of the ball. Probably less roster percentage than a couple of those guys. And Juju Smith-Schuster has been the volume leader, but Juju Smith-Schuster hasn't been doing much with his volume, and Valdes-Scantling isn't even that far behind in terms of volume, really, especially in terms of receptions. So, Juju might catch all 8 of his passes, but Valdes-Scantling could match the production on 170-yard bomb for a touchdown, which he's done in the past, which is why he was one of our favorite players to play on showdown slates for the Packers, because always low owned, and one of the weeks he's going to pop one. He has not yet, but I'm going to keep betting on it and keep putting Valdes-Scantling in my lineups until he does have one of those blow-up performances. Don't really need to talk about Pacheco. I don't know why they price him so high. He gets a decent bit of run, about 20% snap share. He's had some high value opportunities, but he's no more. He's essentially Samaje Perine in terms of, if you're playing him, you're hoping that Mixon gets injured. If you play Pacheco, you're hoping that CEH gets injured. And I just don't build lineups around injury. I know that plenty of people have had success with that in the past. Mecole Hardman, who I almost skipped over because his snap share continues to dwindle and he has only been targeted twice in the last 2 weeks. He can pretty much be completely out of your player pool. The field's not dumb, so most people aren't going to play him. So if you want a very low rostered player who has touchdown upside, I guess he's fine. In large field stuff, MME, maybe he makes the player pool, but I think I would just completely omit Hardman from your lineup and just try to get in early on Sky Moore, who we'll talk about in a moment. I wouldn't go with the Raiders. They're too expensive. They should have been in the $2,800 range playing against Patrick Mahomes, but the Chiefs are fine. Wright and Carlson, both fine. Seems like kickers are making the optimal more and more often these days. Jerick McKinnon's salary is exciting because he's been priced a little high given his production to start the year. He is playing 50% of the snaps throughout the season. It's just that he's not getting actual touches. So 3,000 makes him enticing. I really like Jerick McKinnon at 3,000. Almost in the punt territory. His roster percentage is going to be low. So totally fine with going with Jerick McKinnon. Next, we have Sky Moore, who should be increasing his snap share as the season goes on. He is a rookie, but as Mecole Hardman's snap share goes down, you should see Sky Moore's snap share go up. Last player we'll talk about is Noah Gray. Noah Gray is playing 50% of the snaps, has a legitimate role in the offense, and is only priced at 600. He's got a rushing touchdown last week. He's getting about a catch or two a game, so he's almost a lock to pay off 600. I don't understand why. He should be a $1,400-$1,500 player. I don't really know why they have not priced him up yet, but Noah Gray is an excellent option for your Kansas City stacks, which we'll get into right now. The only lineup that I really want to try to put together is the lineup that I discussed, where we are going to go heavy on Kansas City, and then we are going to play Devontae Adams in the same lineup as Travis Kelce. So it's going to be a Kansas City 5-by-1 with only Devontae Adams in the lineup. So we're going to go Patrick Mahomes at captain with Devontae Adams and Travis Kelce. Throw Marquez Valdes-Scantling in there. Go ahead and throw Noah Gray in there, and then we'll see who we can afford. So with this lineup, you have $4,000 left. You could go Mike Wright, but then you've maxed out your salary. You're not too terribly unique, although 5-by-1 is already fairly unique. So I don't know that you need to worry about maxing your salary. But you could also go Daniel Carlson here, or you could go Jerick McKinnon here. All of those are great options for this lineup. So I would probably go Patrick Mahomes, Devontae Adams, Travis Kelce, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Noah Gray, and Jerick McKinnon in this lineup. So that's going to do it for today. Thank you all so much for coming out. Please like, subscribe, rate, and review, and we will catch y'all next week.